Stand up for a second. Not metaphorically. Actually stand if you can and feel the floor under your feet. Most people who click on a video with cheekbones in the title expect me to talk about your face first. I'm going to do something different. I'm going to talk about your feet first, and I want you to sit with why that might be uncomfortable before I explain it. Here's the challenge I want to put in front of you before anything else. What if the lift you've been chasing in a mirror, under bright bathroom light, tilting your chin and pulling your skin back with 2 fingers to see what could be? What if that lift was never a face problem in the first place? Press your foot flat on the ground right now. Feel the inner edge, the part that curves up slightly, just past your heel and before your big toe. That curve is your arch. In a few minutes, I'm going to show you a 45-second position that uses that exact curve. And I want you to notice, honestly, whether anything changes in your face when you do it. Not because I'm asking you to believe me, because I'd rather you check. I've spent years working with people on tension patterns that show up in the face but don't start there. Jaw clenching that traces back to a hip that doesn't rotate properly. Brow furrowing that eases when someone changes how they carry a bag on one shoulder. So when a woman named Deborah came to me 3 years ago, frustrated that 2 rounds of filler had faded weird, her words, along one side of her face but not the other, I didn't start by looking at her cheek. I asked her to walk across the room. She thought I was being strange. She was right, a little. But I watched her right foot roll inward with every step, collapsing at the arch, and her right shoulder drop 1/2 inch lower than her left with each stride. And her filler had faded unevenly on the right side. That's not proof of anything on its own. One person, one pattern, and I want to be honest about that limitation right from the start. But it was enough of a question that I kept asking it with other people, and the pattern kept showing up. So let's build this slowly, because I think the slow version is the only version worth trusting. Here is the first layer, the simple version. Your body is wrapped continuously in a layer of tissue that sits just under your skin, connective tissue, the kind that surrounds every muscle and links to the next one without gaps, from the sole of your foot to the scalp above your eyebrows. That's not a metaphor. It is one continuous sheet, the way a wetsuit is one continuous piece, even though it covers your arms and your legs and your torso differently. When one section of that sheet is pulled tight for years because of how you stand, how you walk, an old ankle sprain you stopped thinking about a decade ago, the tension doesn't stop at the ankle. It has somewhere to go, and it goes up. That's layer 1. It's true, but it's also incomplete. And I want to be upfront that incomplete is different from wrong. Let's go one layer deeper. Your arch is not just a curve, it's a spring. Every time you take a step, it flattens slightly under your weight and then springs back. And that spring action is supposed to absorb shock, so the force of your heel hitting the ground doesn't travel straight up your leg like a hammer strike. When the arch collapses, from years in unsupportive shoes, from standing on hard floors for work, from simply never having strengthened the small muscles underneath it, that spring stops doing its job. The shock has to go somewhere else. It travels up the shin, through the knee, into the hip, and along the same connective sheet I just described, into the lower back and up the spine. Here's where most explanations stop, and here's where I think most explanations are missing the actual point. They stop at the spine, because the spine is dramatic enough to satisfy people, but the sheet doesn't stop at your spine. It continues up the back of your neck, over your scalp, and down the front, where it connects to the muscle just under your chin and along your jawline. The same thin sheet of muscle that tightens when you wince, when you clench, when you hold tension without realizing it. And when that muscle stays under chronic, low-grade tension, it pulls downward. Not dramatically, not overnight. The way a curtain pulled slightly to one side, day after day, eventually stretches the fabric near the rod. Deborah's filler wasn't fading unevenly because of the filler. It was fading unevenly because one side of her face was under more downward pull than the other, and that pull was starting at her right arch. I told her this, carefully, because I didn't want to overpromise. I said, I think there's a connection here worth testing. Not a guarantee, a hypothesis, built on a pattern I'd seen before that we could actually check together. There's a reasonable question sitting right underneath everything I've just said, and I want to answer it directly instead of hoping you don't ask it. If this connection is real, why does almost nobody talk about it? Why does the entire aesthetic industry point to your face when your face might be the last domino, not the first? Part of the answer is uncomfortable, but simple. A cream is easy to sell. A filler appointment is easy to schedule. Change how your right foot bears weight when you walk is not easy to sell, and it's not easy to schedule. And it requires the kind of patience that a 30-minute appointment doesn't reward. That's not a conspiracy. Nobody is hiding this from you. It's just that the incentives point toward the fast, visible, billable intervention, and the foot is none of those things. There's a second part of the answer that's more interesting to me, honestly. Foot pressure studies, the kind where researchers put someone on a sensor plate and measure exactly how weight moves across the sole with every step, have repeatedly shown something I think about a lot. People who habitually collapse their arch on one side show measurably different tension patterns in their neck and jaw muscles, tested independently on the same side. Not always, not universally, but consistently enough across small groups of participants that it stopped looking like coincidence to the people running the tests. I'm not going to pretend that's the same as a large randomized trial. It isn't, but it's real data, gathered honestly, pointing somewhere specific. Now, 30% of the way into an explanation like this, I think it's fair to tell you something practical exists beyond this one video, so I'll say it once and move on. Everything I've walked through here, the arch, the chain, the collapse pattern, is one piece of a full sequenced approach I put together after seeing this pattern repeatedly across different people. 12 fascial release exercises total, laid out over a 30-day plan with labeled diagrams showing exactly where to place your hands and feet for each one, plus a daily tracking sheet so you're not guessing whether anything is changing. It's called the Connected Face Protocol, and it's linked in the description and the pinned comment if you want the complete sequence rather than just this one piece of it. Back to the arch, because the piece in front of you right now is enough to start with on its own. Here is the 45-second position in full so you can do it today. Sit in a chair with your feet flat on the floor, hip width apart. Slide your right foot back slightly so your heel stays down but your toes lift off the ground, spread wide, like you're trying to make space between each one. Now, without letting your toes curl or grip, press the ball of your foot down and actively lift your arch. Imagine pulling the space just behind your big toe up and back towards your ankle without moving your heel or your toes off the floor. You should feel a distinct, specific tightening along the inside of your foot, sometimes running up into your shin. Hold that lifted arch for a slow count of 15. Release completely, let the foot go flat and soft. Repeat 2 more times on that foot, 3 lifts total, 15 seconds each, 45 seconds altogether. Then switch to the left foot and do the same 3 lifts. Do this once a day, ideally in the morning before you've spent hours walking on a collapsed arch and reinforcing the old pattern. Some people notice a difference in how their jaw feels within the same session, a kind of loosening, almost like unclenching something they didn't know was clenched. That's not universal. I want to say that clearly instead of letting you assume it. For some people, the shift takes 2 to 3 weeks of daily practice before it's noticeable in the mirror rather than just in sensation. The tissue has had years to settle into its current pattern. 15 seconds a day starts asking it to reconsider that pattern, but it doesn't happen instantly, and anyone who tells you it does is selling you something. I want to go one layer deeper now, because I think the honest version of this explanation includes the part where it doesn't work for everyone, and I'd rather you hear that from me than discover it on your own and feel misled. Deborah's case responded. Within 5 weeks of daily arch lifts, combined with a few other pieces of the same chain work, the asymmetry in her face, Not eliminated, I want to be precise about that word, softened enough that she stopped noticing it in photographs, which had been her original complaint. But I've worked with other people whose facial asymmetry had almost nothing to do with their feet. One woman's pattern traced back entirely to how she slept, always on the same side, for 20 years. Another's had more to do with an old jaw injury than anything below the knee. The foot-to-face connection is real. It is not the only connection, and it is not universal. And anyone claiming a single explanation accounts for every face is oversimplifying something that deserves more respect than that. So here's the honest test, the one I'd actually recommend instead of blind faith in what I'm telling you. Do the 45-second lift daily for 3 weeks. Take a photo on day 1, in the same light, same angle, no filter. Take another on day 21. Look at both photos side by side and let the photos make the argument, not my voice in a video. If nothing has shifted, that's useful information too. It tells you the chain running through your particular body might be routed somewhere else, and that's worth knowing rather than continuing to guess. There's a small correction I want to make to something I said earlier because I think precision matters here. I describe the connective sheet as one continuous piece, like a single sheet of fabric. That's the simplified version people usually hear. It's actually made of several distinct overlapping layers that communicate tension between each other rather than one uninterrupted sheet. And that distinction matters because it explains why the effect isn't instant. Tension has to transmit through multiple points of contact, not travel down one unbroken cable. That's part of why 15 seconds a day, repeated for weeks, works better than one long stretch done once. I keep coming back to Deborah's walk across that room 3 years ago because it reframes something for me that I hadn't fully considered before that day. We tend to treat the face as its own separate territory, something to be managed, corrected, filled, lifted, as if it exists independently of the rest of the body it's attached to. But nothing about your body actually works that way. Your face is the last visible expression of decisions your body has been making, quietly, with every single step you've taken since you learned to walk. The way your right foot rolls when you're tired. The side you favor when you're carrying something heavy. None of that shows up immediately. It accumulates, the way anything accumulates when it's repeated 10,000 times a day for years. There's something almost rebellious in that idea, if you sit with it. An entire industry has built itself around convincing you that the fix belongs to your face alone. A cream applied to skin, a needle placed under skin, a laser aimed at skin. And the whole time, the actual conversation your body has been having with itself starts much lower down, in a part of you that almost nobody thinks to examine. You don't need permission to start there instead. You don't need a professional's hands to begin asking the question. You need 15 seconds, 3 times, on each foot, and the willingness to actually look at what happens over 3 weeks instead of assuming you already know. I think about the 2 paths this actually splits into, because I don't think it's more complicated than that. One path is the one most people are already on without choosing it. Keep looking upward at the mirror, keep addressing the last domino in the chain, keep being surprised when the fix doesn't hold the way it was supposed to. The other path starts lower, takes 45 seconds, and asks a more patient question. Not, how do I fix my face, but what has my body been doing for years that eventually reached my face? One of those paths changes fast and fades fast. The other moves slowly, and when it moves, tends to stay. I don't know which path you'll choose after this video ends, and I'm not going to pretend the choice is obvious or easy, because changing a habit you've had since childhood rarely is. But I do know that the floor is still under your feet right now, the same way it was in the first few seconds of this video. And that's the only place any of this actually begins. Not the mirror, not the appointment book, the floor, and the 2 feet standing on it, holding everything else up the way they have for your entire life, your feet. Let me tell you what actually happens when you finally give those 15 seconds the attention they deserve, because I think the mechanism matters more than the mystery. Your foot has 26 bones and 33 joints, and a sheet of connective tissue running along its underside called the plantar fascia. And that sheet doesn't stop at your heel the way most diagrams suggest. It continues. It becomes the fascia running up the back of your calf, then behind your knee, then up through your hamstring, along your spine, over your skull, and down across your forehead until it reaches, of all places, the muscles around your eyes and the corners of your mouth. Anatomists have a name for this continuous sheet, the superficial back line. And if you've never heard of it before today, that's not an accident. It's not a line anyone profits from you understanding, because there's no cream that treats a line, no injectable that lifts a line, no single spot you can point a laser at and call it addressed. It's not a spot. It's a relationship, stretched from your heel to your eyebrows, and it moves as one continuous piece of tissue, whether you're paying attention to it or not. So when that sheet gets tight and short at the bottom, from the shoes that don't let your foot spread the way it's built to, from the sitting, from the flat, hard ground we've traded for the uneven, natural ground your ancestors' feet were shaped by, the tightness doesn't stay at the bottom. It pulls upward, the way a wrinkle in a bedsheet pulls toward the corner you tugged. Your calf compensates. Your hip compensates for your calf. Your lower back compensates for your hip. And by the time that chain of compensation reaches your face, it doesn't look like a foot problem anymore. It looks like tired eyes. It looks like a jaw that sits slightly uneven. It looks like the kind of asymmetry you'd swear you were born with, except photographs of you at 20 tell a different story. This is why the 15 seconds matter, and why 3 times a day matters more than the 15 seconds themselves. You're not trying to fix your foot in a single session, the way you might ice a sprain and expect relief by morning. You're asking a compensation pattern that took years to build, to slowly, gently unbuild itself. And tissue like fascia doesn't respond to force. It responds to patience. Roll something firm but forgiving under the arch of your foot. A ball, a bottle, even just your own thumb pressed into the tissue if that's all you have. And go slow enough that you can feel where it resists. That resistance is information. It's telling you exactly where the chain has been pulling tightest. Exactly where years of the wrong shoes or the wrong ground or the wrong walk have asked your body to hold on instead of release. 15 seconds isn't long enough to force anything. It's long enough to ask. And then you do it again a few hours later, and again before bed. And you keep doing it while telling yourself almost nothing is happening, because almost nothing will feel like it's happening, not at first. 3 weeks is not a marketing number. It's roughly how long it takes for fascia to actually begin remodeling itself, for the tissue to start laying down in a slightly different pattern than the one it defaulted to for years. You won't see it in a single before and after photo, the kind that sells a product in 60 seconds. You'll see it the way you'd notice a season changing, not in one day, but in the fact that one day you look up and the light is different than it was a month ago, and you can't point to the exact afternoon it changed. I want to be honest about something, because I think you deserve honesty more than you deserve reassurance. This won't replace what a dermatologist does, and I'm not telling you to cancel an appointment you've already made or throw away a product that's actually working for you. That's not the argument. The argument is about where you start and what you assume the problem is before you ever reach for the cream or book the appointment. Most people start at the mirror because the mirror is where the evidence shows up first. But evidence and origin are not the same thing. Smoke shows up at the ceiling. The fire started somewhere else. There's a woman I think about sometimes, not because her story is extraordinary, but because it's almost embarrassingly ordinary. The kind of story that happens to thousands of people and gets attributed to age instead of examined. She'd spent 4 years chasing what she called tired face syndrome. Her words, not a doctor's. Fillers that faded faster than they should have. A skincare routine expensive enough that she stopped mentioning the total out loud. And what finally moved something wasn't a new product at all. It was a podiatrist, of all people, mentioning offhand that the left side of her body compensated for an old ankle injury from a decade earlier. One she'd almost forgotten about because it had healed. Healed the ankle, maybe. Not the 11-year habit her whole left side had built around protecting it. Once she started working the actual site, not her face, her foot, the asymmetry she'd been paying to correct for 4 years started softening in a way none of the 4 years before that had managed. I'm not telling you this because it proves anything about your specific face. I'm telling you because it illustrates the direction the arrow actually points, and how rarely we're taught to look at it. So here's where I'll leave you, because I think you already know what I'm going to say, and I'd rather trust you with it than spell it out like you need convincing. Somewhere in the last 22 minutes, you stopped thinking about this video and started, at some point, without meaning to, thinking about your own feet. Maybe you shifted your weight while watching. Maybe you noticed, for the first time in longer than you'd like to admit, which foot you were leaning on. That noticing is the whole thing. That's the 15 seconds already half started before you even reached for anything to roll them on. You came into this video thinking about your face. I'd like you to leave it thinking about the floor, your feet.